Donald Trump just went nuclear on 60 Minutes, absolutely destroying them, the same broadcasting station that did this hit piece on CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse.
But even some of the big financial names on Wall Street have been skeptical of crypto. Jamie Dimon called it pet rock.
There are big skeptics, I think, anytime a new technology, a new industry emerges. The counter to what you're describing is the most successful ETF ever in the United States
Exchange traded fund
was the Bitcoin ETF.
And as you guys already know, if you're subscribed to the channel, this was just a massive hit piece. And as you guys know, this shot right here was turned into a meme telling everybody to lock in. So in this video, what I want you to do is lock in, because now Trump just hosted a high stakes cabinet meeting at the White House. And in this video, I'm going to cover the highlights of that meeting, what you need to know. Also, we're going to get into the Bitcoin to the US dollar price chart and what's happening right now that we talked about 7 days ago on the YouTube channel here. And also breaking down what that means for Ripple XRP holders on the charts and what this will look like for your portfolio in the short term, the midterm, and especially the long term. Plus some massive opportunities for you guys to be able to make money in DeFi, with airdrops, with altcoin picks when you watch all the way to the end of this video. So comment 777 if you're feeling blessed. If you're feeling bullish, let's run it. All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So over the past week, we've seen a nice rebound in the markets with a lot of projects up, 15, 20%, even Fartcoin doing well. It's up 69%. XCN up 127%, and then we have Flare up 42%, Hype up 37%. So we're going to dive into the charts a little bit, and I'm going to explain exactly what's happening so that way you guys have a clear understanding of what to expect moving forward. But before I do, let's talk about what took place at the recent White House meeting that Trump just hosted with a roundtable of some of the most influential people on the planet.
Very good meeting. We're talking about a lot of different things. Consumer prices have actually dropped. There's very little inflation. Everybody predicted a lot of inflation, very little inflation. Energy costs are down. Interest rates are probably down. They scatter, but they're probably down. Prescription drug prices are even to down. We're doing very well. It's been amazing. We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty, but we had in history, it was the biggest day in history, the markets. So we're very, very happy with the way the country is running. We're trying to get the world to treat us fairly. This is something that should have been done 25 years ago, and it wasn't. Should have been done 40 years ago, and it wasn't. But no president was willing to take it on, but you had to. It's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. And as you know, without a lot of money being added, which is a lot of money that we could add, the country is making approximately $2 billion a day. And when you think of it, we've never done that before, never come close to it. And the number is probably $3.5 billion a day. And that makes us a very strong country. But we have Scott here and Howard and some of the people that are working on deals, and the biggest problem they have is they don't have enough time in the day. Everybody wants to come and make a deal, and we're working with a lot of different countries, and it's all going to work out very well. I think it's going to work out really very well, but we're in good shape. There's no inflation. There's very little inflation, and I went 4 years without inflation, and I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, taxes in China. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars a year from China, and we had no inflation, essentially. So we think we're in very good shape. We think we're doing very well. Again, there'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing. We're doing again what we should have done many years ago. We let it get out of control. And we allowed some countries to get very big and very rich at our expense, and can't let that happen. It's not a sustainable formula.
And so with Trueflation sitting at 1.49% below the Fed's 2% target. Well, the next move for the Federal Reserve is to lower interest rates. And what's interesting is on the CME Fed Watch group right here, 23 days until the next FOMC meeting on the 7th of May, well, 79% are expecting to keep rates steady, to not cut rates. So that could lead into issues that I'll get into in a little bit on the charts before the 18th of June's meeting, because 61% are then expecting a rate cut. So unless something drastic happens within the next couple weeks before the next meeting, the vast majority are expecting the Fed to keep rates steady. And this is a big deal because this current bull run thus far on the right-hand side of the screen for Bitcoin and the rest of the altcoin market has happened while the Fed has had rates paused. Even the early stage of the bull run, while they were raising rates, the markets were going up. So we haven't seen what it looks like for a bull run this current cycle with low rates. Because if you guys remember the 2021 cycle, this rally from March of 2020 was when the Fed drastically had to cut rates and drop them down to virtually nothing, inject massive liquidity, sign the CARES Act into law, give everyone their stimulus checks, and that's when we saw the massive explosion in the crypto market. Whereas this cycle, this time around, it's been a lot longer to break out to new all-time highs, where we've seen these grueling consolidation periods. For example, the last one that we went through from March of 2024 until November was 238 days, and currently we've been consolidating beneath $107,000 since the 17th of December. So we're about 119 days in. So a lot of people are wondering, when will the markets break out? Well, we're going to look at confluence on the chart compared back to the past. I showed you guys this in a previous video, if you remember this, from 7 days ago, talking about Bitcoin's current price chart compared to even 2023. So we see these chart patterns play out time and time again, and I'll explain what this means in a little bit and exactly what we're looking for the next major move for Bitcoin that will directly affect altcoins. So before we do that, another notable piece of news that came for that meeting was what Elon Musk here said about government waste.
The very talented Doge team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion. And some of it is just absurd, like people getting unemployment insurance who haven't been born yet. I think anyone can appreciate whether, come on, that's just crazy. Some of these things, if people ask me, well, how are you going to find waste and fraud in the government? I'm like, well, actually just go in any direction. That's how you find it. It's very common. it's, as the military would say, target-rich environment. So I think we're doing a lot of good and excellent collaboration with the cabinet to achieve these savings. And it will actually result in better services for the American people, and that we're going to be spending their tax dollars in a way that is sensible and fair and good.
Now, that's what you see right here on the US debt clock with the Doge clock showing $317 billion right here in uncovered waste and spending. Well, that seems like a lot, but it's not necessarily that much compared to the U.S. federal spending right here in the deficit, the budget deficit, compared to how much they're collecting in tax revenue. So while they are collecting billions of dollars in tariffs now, well, there's still a $2 trillion deficit. So when we just ask Grok how much money is actually coming in from the new tariffs that Trump just enacted, such as 145% of Chinese imports effective April 9th, estimates for 2025 suggest these tariffs could raise $171.6 billion annually. Another source is projecting $258 billion in annual revenue for 2025. So even if we take the higher estimate of $258 billion in annual revenue, we're talking about $2 trillion in the federal budget deficit to try and make up for the gap. So if we just take $2 trillion and divide that by $258 billion in tariffs, just from the tariffs alone, it would take approximately 7.75 years of collecting tariff revenue to basically offset this federal budget deficit, even with the current amount that the U.S. is bringing in through federal tax revenue. So unless they're going to tax people more, Doge is going to uncover more waste and fraud, or they're going to tariff these countries even more, there is a significant change that needs to happen for this budget deficit to go from $2 trillion down to nothing. So you can see right here that it's climbing up. It's not going backwards. So even with what Trump is doing right now, this puts the Fed in a hard place, because if they lower rates and money's cheaper and they're able to print more money, they're able to add to their balance sheet, it's just going to continuously add to the U.S. national debt. So can you guys see how this is a runaway freight train that cannot not be stopped no matter what Trump does, because he would have to charge thousands of percent in tariffs, which would shock the market even more. So at some point, the Fed is going to have to lower interest rates. And what do they always resort to? Well, money printer go burr, and the US national debt just keeps climbing. So that's why the US dollar is a doomed currency. It is not a safe place to store long-term wealth, because inflation, monetary print orders, and the interest on the bonds that they've issued, because that's the biggest deal. It's not the debt, it's the interest they have to pay on that debt that just keeps stacking up. Also, look at this. Trump just posted this saying almost every week, 60 Minutes, which is being sued for billions of dollars for the fraud they committed in the 2024 presidential election, with their interview of Kamala Harris, mentions the name Trump in a derogatory, defamatory way, but this week's broadcast tops them all. They did not one, but two major stories on Trump, one having to do with Ukraine, which he's saying is a war that would have never happened if he won the election and it wasn't rigged. So in other words, if he were president at that time, the war wouldn't have happened, and he's going to be suing 60 Minutes, CBS, and Paramount over the reporting they did. Also saying they did everything possible to illegally elect Kamala, including changing major answers to interview questions, saying they're not a news show but a dishonest political operative simply disguised as news. And they should lose their license. Hopefully the Federal Communications Commission, as headed by Brendan Carr, will impose the maximum fines and punishment, which is substantial for their unlawful and illegal behavior. CBS is out of control at levels never seen before, and they should pay a big price for this. What do you guys think about that? Because if you watch this interview with Brad Garlinghouse, it did not paint picture in a good light. It still painted it as the wild, wild west and how it's risky to ultimately scare investors so they wouldn't accumulate any crypto. So when push comes to shove, this is why you need to learn how to look at charts. Because when you learn how to read charts and you have a better understanding of how patterns play out time and time again, then you can make your investment decisions based on logic rather than emotions of fundamental analysis and crazy headlines from Trump and all that stuff. So when I talk about that, it's to give you guys an idea of how, even with what Trump is doing with these tariffs, with the Department of Government Efficiency, a lot of people falsely think that that's the type of stuff that's going to move the markets, when in reality, it's other factors like the effective federal funds rate, the Fed's balance sheet, monetary print orders, global liquidity. And in the short term, yes, there is volatility when Trump announced tariff news, but in the long term, global liquidity in the Fed printing more money is what causes crypto to go up. So when we look at the chart here, we can see what happened back here at the tail end of February when Trump started announcing tariffs. You know, it dropped Bitcoin from $99,000, about $100,000, all the way down to $77,000. And we saw a pattern like this play out in the past to ultimately lead to a bullish divergence that I talked about 7 days ago in this video right here, where I showed you guys exactly what this looks like on the chart, for example. But here's a key thing to note here, okay? On the right-hand side of the screen, look at how the price got slapped back down into support, but the relative strength index made a higher low on the daily chart right here back in September of 2023, whereas the price chart made a lower low. So what this is a reversal signal. It could either be a medium or a strong bullish divergence, meaning that the price chart right here makes a lower low, but the oscillator or the indicator, which is the relative strength index, makes a higher low. So when you learn to spot patterns like this, then it doesn't necessarily matter what happens in the news, because sometimes the most bullish news could come out, but yet the price action on the chart acts in an opposite way and goes the opposite direction. Why is that? It's because of things like bearish and bullish divergences. For example, look at this. If we look all the way back here in May of 2021, when Bitcoin went from $59,000 and saw that massive crash in the market, even from right here at the peak of that local high at 64,000, the price dropped over 55% from that peak. And had you have bought the top right here at 62,000 when everyone was getting into the market, you had to watch your portfolio bleed out over 50% over the course of 71 days. So for over 2 months, you're just getting destroyed. If you put $100,000 in, you're like, I need to buy Bitcoin at $64,000. Well, then you had like $45,000 70 days later. So had you subscribed to the channel, you could understand this type of stuff, so you know the best time to accumulate, because we're seeing something similar play out right now. For example, you see this support here at the mid $40,000 region right here from the 27th of February until the 25th of April. Once we broke below that, the price dropped rapidly to $29,000. And we just don't go down forever. We see the price have the initial breakdown, but then we see recoveries followed by equal lows, lower lows, or higher lows. And so this is where we get into the divergences here that I'll explain. So pay close attention to this, because we are looking at Bitcoin on the daily. We also have the relative strength index and the MACD up. So for example, right here, when the price broke down to $29,000, we saw this get bought up rapidly back to $40,000, creating a massive liquidation trap. Because for people that started to enter back into the markets when Bitcoin rebounded to $40,000, You don't want to buy on these recovery bounces here because we usually see the price come back down another few times, more than once, because as you can see here, the price bounced up 40,000, came down to 33, bounced up to 39, came down to 31, bounced up to 41, came down to 28, bounced up to 36, and then inevitably had the final low right here on like the 19th of July at $29,000, and then made a big recovery to the top of that bull market on like the 9th and 10th of November, about $68,000. And so, in my opinion, that's what's coming for the crypto market, specifically for Bitcoin. I'll explain how that affects XRP in a little bit, but let's look at the divergence here that we're seeing, because when the price broke down here to $30,000, look at what happened to the relative strength index on the upper left-hand side of the screen. The RSI dropped to 24 right here. So the price chart made its first initial low on that major breakdown and that drop below the key support of about $46,000, right around there. When we saw the bounce back up to $41,000, the RSI bounced up to 53, and then we saw the price sell off for a lower low than the low of the 19th of May, right here by the 20th of July for that final low, whereas the relative strength index dropped from 50 back down here to 33, which was a higher low on the upper left-hand side of the screen right here, where I'm circling right here in yellow. And so what this is a strong bullish divergence. For example, the price makes a lower low and the oscillator, which is the relative strength index, makes a higher low. So you can see that's exactly what happened. Price chart made a lower low by the 19th of July, whereas the relative strength index made a higher low. Now let's look at the right-hand side of the screen and we'll move indicator by indicator and divergence by divergence. And so what we can see here is on the breakdown below this key support of around $91,000 that Bitcoin stayed above from the 25th of November until the 25th of February for about 3 months. Once that initial breakdown happened, the price dropped to $77,000 right here. Similar to what happened by the 19th of May of 2021. Look on the right-hand side of the screen on the relative strength index. The RSI dropped to about 24.25 for that low right there, similar to what happened when the RSI dropped to like 22.23 on 19th of May during that initial breakdown last bull market cycle. And sure enough, what did we see? We saw the price recover all the way up to $88,000. A lot of people entered in right there for the liquidity trap. And then the price sold off all the way back down here to $74,000 for a lower low. And so the RSI pulled back from about 51 all the way to 34 for a higher low. So we're seeing some similarities here and some confluence compared back to the past thus far on the relative strength index for this lower low. The real question is, have we started this major recovery like what we went through right here in the market cycle? Or are we more so going through a recovery like what we went through right here by the 27th of June? And do we have longer to play out on this bullish divergence on the relative strength index for the price to come back down again, with the relative strength index putting in a higher low, whereas the price puts in an equal or a lower low before we start the recovery? That's the real question. So in my opinion, we're either in one of two positions right now in the market, and we are very, very close, if not already there, to the breakout happening right now for Bitcoin to make a recovery back into this major resistance. Because as you guys can see on the left-hand side of the screen, when the breakout from this lower low happened, Bitcoin went from $29,000 on the 20th of July all the way up here to $52,000, recovering 79% in about 48 days. So in less than 2 months, Bitcoin moved fast. And so these recoveries, they can happen quick. I get it. Fear is at a high when we're down in levels like this, but when you just learn to look at charts, you can see this type of stuff play out time and time again. So right now on the relative strength index, we're either going through this recovery like what we went through right here before we drop down for another higher low, or we've already started the breakout from this descending resistance, as you guys can see right here on the right-hand side of the screen. So we will see how this plays out over the next few weeks because of what I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But if we look at the MACD as well too, during the pullback from the peak on the 15th of April until the 20th of July, we saw the MACD reset below zero and experience multiple bearish crosses above the zero line on the way down until inevitably we saw the MACD all the way down here, like negative 4,600, experienced a bullish cross when the price chart broke down to $29,000 for that first dip. And then when we saw a lower low on the price chart, not only did we see a higher low on the RSI, but we saw a higher low on the MACD as well too. So on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see the price chart making a lower low for the initial breakdown on the 20th of February to the 9th of April. the relative strength index made a higher low. Also, look at the MACD as well too. We can see all the way down here on the 14th of March, the MACD made the lowest low when the price was at $76,000. And so after the recovery and the lower low, the MACD made a higher low as well too. So it's looking somewhat similar. So this is actually a really good sign that Bitcoin is about to make a major recovery within this zone right here of about $92,000. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, Bitcoin didn't just recover into the zone, it pushed a little bit past it, and then we saw a major bull flag right here before breaking through this resistance again for the all-time high, and then we started the bear market. So in my opinion, I think that's what's coming. With this breakout for Bitcoin, whether we have a little bit longer in here, if we make another lower low, doesn't matter for me, because what I'm gonna be watching here is when Bitcoin finally does make this recovery into this zone of resistance, I'm gonna be watching for some type of bull flag like this to take place before we break out to the previous all-time high or go into price discovery, like what happened for that double top by November of 2021. So for those considering when should they sell, again, I'm not giving you guys financial advice. These videos are purely for educational, informational purposes only. Consult your financial advisor because crypto is very risky. Just because I'm showing you something on the chart doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's just pure speculation from my point of view based on confluence that I'm showing you on these charts. But for me, the smart thing to do if you're considering de-risking is on the next major move for Bitcoin into a zone of resistance before a bull flag or a major pullback takes place, then that could be a smart point to consider removing some risk from the table. Because you don't sell when everyone's in the most amount of fear and we're all the way down here. For example, the people that were selling at $74,000, but yet buying at $88,000, that's how you get wrecked every single time. I get it, your emotions are telling you that it's the best time to sell right here when we're making a lower low by like the 8th of April because the most amount of fear was being pushed out there by Trump, tariff news dropping, but you have to keep your emotions in check, and that's why you have to learn how to look at charts here. We sell into the relief rallies and we sell when we are overbought on these key indicators, meaning we're above 70, and then we buy when we are near 30 or below 30 in oversold conditions. And if you guys want to learn how to read charts even better, then attend our Tuesday call coming up tomorrow. It's called Technical Analysis Tuesdays. It's going to be between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you guys want to watch the replays of every single call that we've been doing every single month, you just click the link in the description below, join Altcoin Pro University, click on Classroom right here, and then in the upper right, you're going to see live call recordings. So you can click this and you'll see every single call that we have ever done in the past and also future calls that we're going to be doing, giving you guys top-notch technical analysis training. So I know you're going to absolutely love that. Because on the next major move for Bitcoin, we're going to be watching the relative strength index. You know, if we come back down for another higher low and the price pulls back again, well, we're just going to watch and see. But when the RSI finally does break out to the upside, if the price chart, for example, is making a higher high, like what happened back here, from the 12th of April of 2021 until like the 9th and 10th and 11th of November, you can see right here was a higher high on the price chart, whereas the relative strength index can only muster up the momentum to rally to about 76 for a lower high than the 6th of January for a bearish divergence, which is when the price chart makes a higher high, but the key indicator, in this case, the relative strength index, makes a lower high. And so that's a bearish reversal signal. And that's exactly what happened for Bitcoin. If you would have spotted that, then you would have known that that was the best time to exit out of crypto in general and then just come back during the bear market bottom, or learn how to leverage short the market on the way down, which has its own set of risks depending on your strategy. And so we're going to be watching the price chart when the breakout happens if we make a higher high, but yet the relative strength index does not pass the high of the 11th of November of 2024. Because as you can see, the RSI rallied all the way up here to about 85. So this is what we're going to watch on the relative strength index over the next few months. And also we're going to watch the MACD as well too, and see if the MACD can clear the high of the end of November as well too, when that bearish cross took place. So in my opinion, on the next recovery rally, we're going to see a bearish divergence take place. And we'll see if I'm right about this, then we'll revisit this video in the future, just like I revisited this video right here that I made about a week ago, showing you guys what was about to happen. Now, if we look at Bitcoin's price chart compared to XRP, XRP is just simply going to follow what Bitcoin does. And so as you guys can see, we have been in a downtrend since the 16th of January with this descending resistance right here. And as XRP comes in contact with it right now, well, a few key things could happen depending on what Bitcoin does. So if Bitcoin sees a massive move back into the $90,000 region, well, then I would expect liquidity to flow into XRP to break this descending resistance, to come back in contact with like the $2.55 region before a major bull flag takes place. That's if Bitcoin breaks out into this region right here on the left-hand side of the screen. If that does not happen and we just see Bitcoin like range sideways or even come back down for a lower low, then that would not be good news for XRP, because right now XRP is at a critical resistance right here, not only on the price chart, but on the relative strength index, because we have been getting rejected, seeing lower highs ever since the 1st of December, the 17th of January, a lower high. Right here, the 3rd of March, a lower high. Right here, the 20th of March, a lower high. And we are at this descending resistance right now. So XRP needs to break this descending resistance and hold it as support to see an inevitable trend reversal. And ultimately, I like to look at horizontal resistances for true trend reversals, because just because XRP clears a descending resistance doesn't mean that it's a trend reversal, because we need to clear the previous local high of like $2.60. Otherwise, we could see XRP get rejected and then just consolidate on top of this descending resistance as support, like what I showed you guys on the ICP chart like a year or two ago before ICP broke out upwards of $10. Otherwise, if we don't see Bitcoin break to the upside, we see Bitcoin come down for a lower low, then I believe XRP would get rejected and see a move down to like $1.30 to $1.55 to sweep out these lows to reach max pain, max fear before we finally break out in the market. So good news and bad news, okay? The bad news is that yes, XRP could potentially come down for a final liquidity flush to shake out the majority of retail, price them out of the markets, and drop down to like $1.30, $1.50. It's definitely possible, because if you look at the relative strength index, the lowest that XRP has dropped on the RSI on the daily chart since this consolidation has been happening ever since the 3rd of December. So we have December, January, February, March, April, 5 months, has only been about 32. We haven't seen XRP come down below 30 and dip into the 20 range. And so for me to accumulate more XRP, this is what I would want to see. A dream come true for me. A liquidation event down here. I would probably max long XRP if it came down to like $1.40 to $1.50. That's what I would personally do, because right now we're in a sticky situation here. We're at a descending resistance for the RSI, for the price chart. We've seen indecision from the bulls and the bears down here below the zero line for the MACD. And Bitcoin has just been ranging with Trump's tariff news. And so while I do like to have the positive outlook of, you know, everything's going to be bullish, it's going to be green, we're going to be breaking out because of what I just showed you for the bullish divergence right here from a video 7 days ago. As you guys know, there's tons of variables that happen in the market. So you have to be ready for stuff like this. And if this happens, you need to reprogram your mind to look at it as an opportunity, because you don't make money buying at peaks. You don't make money buying into relief rallies like what we're seeing right now. You make your money when the fear is very high and everyone is thinking of selling. That's when you make money. It's when you buy. And if you're buying low, well, then that gives you a better opportunity to sell higher on the recovery rallies into zones of resistance. The problem is where people lose money in these markets is they buy into zones of resistance. For example, the worst possible times to buy any asset is when it's coming in contact with like descending resistance or horizontal resistances. So like even right now with XRP at $2.15, this is a very sticky situation here because we're at a resistance right now. So a long-term strategy is not just buying when you feel like it. We buy into zones of support. We also buy when key indicators are in oversold conditions. Right now, the RSI is at 50, guys. We're neither overbought nor oversold. We're right in the middle. So we just watch and we wait and see how this plays out. We're either going to see XRP break this descending resistance and come up into the next zone of resistance and either blast through it or consolidate it at it or even get rejected from it. We just don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. But how you create a long-term investment strategy for yourself is obviously you join Altcoin Pro University. You know, shout out to Roger Moore for just signing up while I'm making this video. He joined as an annual customer. Again, it's $97 a month or $970 a year. So you guys can be able to truly understand this stuff in depth. There's only so much I can cover in like a 30-minute video. That's why you want to attend every call every single week. That way you can master these concepts that I'm talking about, because I became a crypto millionaire before 30 years old by understanding these things. And there's so much more stuff that I still have yet to learn. But what I'm talking with you guys about right now is what I do. I don't just talk about it, I live it. So for me, I'm not buying XRP right now, even though I'm bullish on XRP. I think it's going to do very, very well. We're at a major descending resistance right now for the price chart, the relative strength index, and Bitcoin has seen a recovery from $74,000 to $84,000. I would want to see XRP either liquidate a lot more people to the downside, or I would want to see XRP clear these major resistances like this and see a bull flag hold it as support. And then I would consider longing the market right around here on these back tests after the next few weeks, even few months, guys. Macro patience is key here, because if XRP does something like this on the price chart and doesn't liquidate people at like $1.50-ish, then a lot of people, mark my words, are going to be coming back into the markets, buying XRP on this relief rally, not knowing that there's going to be some type of triangle pattern or bull flag that takes place before XRP makes a new all-time high. And so we don't enter on the relief rallies, we enter on the pullbacks after confirmed trend reversals. Or if you got balls of steel on the major liquidation events down here, the challenge is you could be catching a falling knife, because, you know, on the recoveries like this, then we see a double bottom like that before we break out. So you just don't know where the bottom's going to be if you buy this liquidation right here. But in the long term, if you got balls of steel, waiting for events like this to take place and then just buying as much as you can on the way down when the indicators are in drastic oversold conditions below 20, and then just holding on the macro, in my opinion, is the smartest move. But you just don't know if that's going to happen. So you can't get too greedy to the downside by waiting for the price to drop lower and be like, oh, the price is going to drop lower before I accumulate anything. And you can't get too impatient to the upside and be like, I have to buy now because the price is just going to keep breaking out, because the price doesn't go up forever. It doesn't come down forever. So again, to recap, if I just clear the drawings on the right hand side of the screen, I know it looks a little crazy here. The main thing that we want to look for is divergences, okay? Bullish divergences where the price makes a lower low on the price chart, but yet the indicator makes a higher low. This is a key reversal signal where the price has a higher likelihood of reversing to the upside. There's no guarantee, obviously, because there's no perfect indicator. But the other thing that we look for is bearish divergences, where the price chart can make a higher high, but yet the indicator makes a lower high, showing that momentum is shifting over from bullish momentum like what we saw at the top of the 2021 bull market cycle. But yet the major indicators are showing a momentum shift from bullish to bearish, especially on the macro. For example, like we're on the monthly chart right now. And as you guys can see for Bitcoin, when the price chart made a higher high on the month by the 1st of November, look at the RSI. It only rallied back up to 70. So when you're in doubt, you zoom out and you guys will see the relative strength index pretty much made somewhat of an equal high, maybe a little bit lower of a high on the RSI, whereas the price chart made a drastic higher high. So we're pretty close to this bull market being over, and I think it's going to end this year. So we're just going to watch and see how high this recovery rally comes and where that puts the RSI in the monthly chart, and also what happens on the MACD, because you guys can see here the MACD line in blue is at 14,257. The signal line in orange is at 12,700. We haven't experienced a bearish cross yet, and usually a bearish cross on like the monthly, well, just based on last bull run cycle, happens after the top comes in. So it's a little bit of a lagging indicator here. And you can see all through this phase right here from the 1st of May until that top came in, the MACD line in blue stayed above the signal line. So just because we've seen a little bit of a pullback on the MACD line doesn't mean that we're going to see a cross right away. Over the next few months, we could see it go sideways for a bit until we inevitably see a bearish cross happen while the price, you know, does stuff like this and breaks out to a high. Then we see the bear market come in. So we're pretty close to the high just based on the monthly chart right here. We just don't know when that bearish cross is going to come in on the MACD. We don't know if the RSI is going to breach up to an equal high, a lower high, or a higher high, and then do something like this to the downside during the bear market. But either way, the uptrend is still intact, and we're going to keep you updated on a daily basis when you subscribe to the channel and you like this video. Also, I mentioned some major opportunities for you guys to be able to not only make money during a bull market, but make money during a boring, consolidating sideways market, and also during a bear market inside of Altcoin Pro University, where we have constant market updates, altcoin picks, DeFi yield picks, airdrop picks, and you can come in here and get all of your questions answered. We have 24/7 support and constant stuff like this being posted about airdrop wins. For example, this one was worth $1,600 just 3 days ago. And we have instructions posted showing you guys how to qualify for these airdrops, which is basically free money from these protocols that you wouldn't know about unless you plug in with Altcoin Pro University. Even this one right here from Solskjaer less than a week ago was an Edge airdrop that was worth about 6,700 Edge, which is about $600 US. So these are realistic type of airdrops that you can get. We're not promising you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some of them you can, depending on where your portfolio is at. But if you want to make a few extra $100 a month, these types of things, these airdrops, these DeFi yield picks right here, that will teach you guys how to earn passive income on your crypto while you just hold it, is what pays for the $97 a month and the $970 a year. Plus the skills that you learn that are going to make you a better trader, a better investor, and overall in Altcoin Pro are priceless. So check it out. Worst case scenario, like I always say, is you get started. You pay the $97 a month. You pay as you go, no contract, no commitment. Or you pay the $970 a year to save $194 and unlock the exclusive bonuses that give you even more value, and it's not the right thing for you. Well, we have a 14-day money back guarantee. So like I just said, worst case scenario, you get your money back and you learn something new and you walk away a better investor with zero risk. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario is you stick with us long term, even during the bear market, because guys, when the bear market kicks in and we see the market bottom out, that's when the best opportunities are going to pop up. And that is the best time to buy in crypto. And that's just common sense. I mean, everybody agrees, nobody disagrees that the best time to buy Bitcoin during the bear market was in November to January of 2022 and 2023 right here. Like, that's undeniable. You can't even argue with that. The other best time was during COVID right here. The other best time was right down here during December of 2018. Otherwise, you have to buy on pullbacks like this and try and time your entries, which is really tough. And so best case scenario is you get started and you stick with us all through the bear market too, and you're going to discover some of the biggest gems in crypto when the next major shakeout, like what we went through from November 2021 to December 2022, took place with like FTX, all these collapses that happened, even with what happened back here from December 2017 to December 2018 during the last crash. Well, the next crash that comes, you got to be ready for it, and we will share with you guys the best opportunities to help you make the most amount of money possible, because we're going to be backing up our truck all the way to the bank, grabbing the bags, packing them and stacking them, leaving no bags left behind, because the spending power of the dollar, it's going to keep going down in value based on inflation, monetary print orders, the U.S. national debt, the federal budget deficit right here, that even with tariffs, the Department of Government Efficiency, and taxes, currently is not offsetting right now because it just keeps going up. Whereas blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, cryptocurrencies, and Altcoin Pro University is going up in value. That's the truth. And together, we're all running to the top. So I'll see you guys on the next video. I will see you through the link in the description below when you join Altcoin Pro University. Right now, as always, you know what to do. Stay bullish.